Hello, I am Professor Peta Ashworth, and I have the privilege of being the Director of the Andrew N. Liveris Academy for Innovation and Leadership and Chair of Sustainable Energy Futures at the University of Queensland, Brisbane, Australia. Here in Australia, living in a post-COVID world, it is clear to see that trust in science has been eroded for some, those who chose not to be vaccinated, but increased for others who have seen the benefits of the rapid development of the various vaccinations to keep people safe. Living through such disruption, it also showed us that change is possible and that it can allow us to live more sustainably, as the enforced lockdowns provided opportunities for many to rethink how they go about their daily lives, choose to travel to work or stay at home, holiday more locally, or even attend global conferences online, which previously would not have been possible. At the same time, however, as the world activities have resumed post-COVID, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has brought about renewed and different pressures, particularly on the world's energy supply, cost of living, and overall geopolitical stability. Even here in Australia, a long way from Europe, many are being impacted by the rising costs of living and their energy bills. And as we attempt to increase the penetration of renewable energy generation, we are witnessing a continued growing pressure on a range of supply chains that are critical for our energy transition. We first saw such supply chain issues emerge through COVID, and while some have improved, supply chain shortages are definitely continuing today, particularly in relation to the critical minerals required to transform our energy system. Such a predicament has made many in Australia acutely aware of the sovereign risks of being reliant on external supply chains of which we have limited control. As such, there's been an increased focus on how we might revolutionise our own local manufacturing, not only creating new capabilities, but also bringing hope to regional parts of Australia where new distributed forms of energy are being explored to power such proposed manufacturing hubs. However, like many other countries, Australia is facing a massive skills shortage, which is exacerbating our ability to manage our energy transition as rapidly as the science would suggest is needed. And as such, is forcing our governments to heavily invest in many forms of training and education. The other massive disruption that occurred during COVID was the fast track of the world's digital transformation. This showed us not only what is possible, but brought about profound change in the way that we work. Through this reliance on all things digital, whether it be for communication, the COVID Safe app and our passport to freedom, the use of artificial intelligence, robotics or other transformations, it also means there's been an increased focus on cybersecurity as an important consideration. Through all of this, I believe there is greater recognition from our governments on the role of and the need for science communication. And this in turn has raised the profile of the need for TA activities to be better integrated with policy. Like other forms of communication, this has meant that we were forced to and were able to innovate and try different ways to engage with stakeholders using the online tools fast-tracked by the onset of COVID. While it has meant that we've had to forgo many in-person, face-to-face TA activities, the upside is that it has allowed us to access more people, because travel costs are almost non-existent when engaging online. As well, when it comes to involving the broader public, it has also allowed others to participate in TA activities that may not normally have been able to because of their inabilities to travel or leave their home. And for others, they have been more encouraged to take part in such activities because they can do so from the comfort of their own homes. So while TA is still not enshrined here in Australia as a formal recognised method, there is growing recognition of the importance of science communication and TA-like activities across governments here in Australia. As my research focused predominantly on the climate and energy domains, I will share my perspectives on that. For me, what is most exciting is that for the first time here in Australia, we have an agreed emissions reduction target, which has been formally passed by Parliament. This has definitely brought about increased hope across Australian citizens and me that we will work to transform our energy generation profile away from fossil fuels to more low carbon renewable energies. In fact, we're already doing so. As well, I think it allows Australia to be viewed more positively on the international stage. I think many government bureaucrats are looking forward to the opportunity to participate more fully in Egypt at the end of the year. Similarly, there is a growing imprimatur for policymakers and bureaucrats to deliver on the target through instigating action across all levels. Here they recognise the importance of climate change communication and are looking for advice on the best ways to engage a broad cross-section of the public on the topic, as well as look for ways to support our near neighbours in the Pacific and build capacity for them, as they are likely to be the ones most impacted in the first instance. However, with the increased integration of renewable energies and the gradual closure of coal-fired power stations, Australia is currently on a huge precipice to ensure affordable and reliable electricity supply. And with the rising costs of electricity, transport fuels, and our Bureau of Meteorology predicting that Australia is facing another La Nina, increasing the chances of above average rainfall for northern and eastern Australia during our spring and summer, I believe the new government and industry is very aware of how vulnerable we are. With low levels of energy literacy and understanding of the problem, there is real recognition of the need to communicate the challenges that exist so that individuals are better informed and prepared so as not to blame all of the likely negative consequences solely on the increased investment in renewable energy and climate change mitigation attempts. If this happens, it could severely negatively influence a percentage of the voting public, which may then have huge negative consequences for the government of the day, who is finally able to bring about these changes and progress on climate change. As part of our goals for decarbonisation, there has also been a growing interest in hydrogen production, both for export and domestic use. Australia's National Hydrogen Strategy was first developed by our former Chief Scientist, Dr. Alan Finkel, in conjunction with a task force of industry, academics, government, and other peak bodies. Like the rest of the world, this set a high bar for the role that hydrogen may play in Australia. Now, each state and territory government has developed their own hydrogen strategies, which is creating excitement for communities and businesses, but also some trepidation at the scale of transformation, infrastructure upgrades, and water use that will be needed. Given that just over 5 years ago, hydrogen did not even feature in any of our national surveys and engagement activities on the topic of climate change and energy technologies, this is quite a significant change. That said, however, there is recognition that regional and remote Australian communities will not only be the worst affected by climate change impacts, they will also be deeply affected by the transition away from fossil fuels, particularly the closure of coal-fired power generators and associated mining activities, as these have been the backbone of much of their economic stability. Through all of this, there's been a growing recognition of the importance of ensuring there is a focus on continuing to gain public support, whether it be for new projects, new infrastructure, or use of water. Hence, there has been a growing recognition by governments of the need to engage, and they are proactively seeking out advice on the best ways to do this. Well, I would like to say the future is bright for science communication, for policy and political decision makers. I'm not convinced that this will be the case across all domains. However, as new technologies are developed and society faces more severe disruptions, whether it be the next pandemic, severe climate change impacts, cyber attacks, or events of an unpredicted geopolitical nature, there will be a need to work with key bureaucrats and our elected political leaders to bring society with us on the journey. In relation to climate change, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is a well-respected science body, and their reports, in particular, Summary for Policymakers, do help to set the agenda for action on climate change. Most governments are listening and looking for direction in this area. As well, more and more we are witnessing forecasts of paths to net zero that in turn help to influence the actions of industry and other multinationals as well as governments. So here science communication is playing an important role. However, As we saw with the communication during the COVID pandemic, it is not a one-size-fits-all. And so the more we can collaborate with colleagues through the Global TA Network on these complex issues, I believe the better off the world will be. Thank you.